heck is that up there anyway? I don't know. It might be a fairy or something. I don't know. I can't seem to grab it. Oh, what the heck? What the heck was that? What's up with that? Dang, man. Yeah? Oh. Anyways, this thing I had to tell you. I tell you about these ants, okay? It's like this whole entire place, all these people, hundreds of people, and they all have these 5-gallon aquariums with ants in them. They raise ants, okay? Then there was 500,000 of them. Pretty soon there was 300 million people with 5-gallon aquariums raising ants. Fine and dandy. One of those 300 million people forgot to feed the ants, and the whole slew of ants in that aquarium died. Somebody got the bright idea that wasn't right. That needed to fix that. So they imposed some regulations on the other 499,999,999 people that they had to feed their ants. Otherwise, there'd be consequences. So the law they imposed was they had regulations, and the regulations required a whole bunch of people, like 500,000 of them, to go out and ensure that everybody else was feeding their ants. And since they didn't want to work for free, they had to pay them. And in order to pay them, they had to have some money. And since they didn't do anything, they had to take money from all those people in order to pay the 500,000 people to go check on them to make sure they were feeding their ants. That's how it all got started back in 1776. That's how it all got started. You got a bunch of people looking at a bunch of other people, and all them other people pay these people to do what that guy said these people needed to do for them. And rather than just feeding their own ants. And that's not all of it. The other problem is, it went in two directions. One idea was, well, here's what we'll do. The problem that you had isn't that one guy, it's getting the food. So, well, we don't want this one guy on top telling these 500,000 people to go check on those 300 million people to see that they're feeding their ants and pay these guys to get that one guy, whatever. So their idea was to get this guy to be on his own. And he would deliver food, okay, so that they could feed their ants. But he wouldn't be, like, regulating what they feed him or how often. And then they would just pay him. So they did that. Then they created competition. They had 3 guys doing it. But they all charged their own rates, and they all ran their own race. And whoever got there the fastest got the most business. Capitalism. That's where it got started. But then one guy got the bright idea, hey, look, I can do 5 a day. But I've got 6 customers, so I'm going to try and get 7 customers, and I'll put a couple of them off. Their ants won't starve to death. And when he got 7 customers, he went out to this other guy and said, look, I'll give you 3 customers for free to go feed the ants. And I'll go do my stuff. But see, what he did was he only gave that guy, his employee, 80% of the money for those 3 customers that he provided him with. He kept the other 20% for himself. Well, in time, he ended up having 20 employees. He had so many customers, and he kept 20% of everything that all of his employees did. So he added up all of his employees. He was actually making more money by having them work than if he did it himself. So the end result of all that was he didn't do anything for the money that he made. And the guys that were working for him didn't make as much money as they could if they'd have been working on their own. That's capitalism. But then you got this progressive stuff still hanging in there. Because now that they want to do is they want to regulate the guys who are hiring the guys to go sell the food to those guys who want to feed their ants. And they want to tax the guys feeding the ants because they're watching out for those guys by ensuring that the guy that employs all the guys that sell the food to them are selling them the right amount, and that's good ant food. Plus, they're taxing the guy that's delivering the food, and then they're taxing the guy that hires the guy that delivers the food. So they're getting like a cut like a big capitalistic cut out of that. It ends up being about 35% of all the money generated goes to this progressive government guy. But he can't do it alone, so he does the same thing. He's got 300 million people out there to tax. So what he does is he hires 500,000 government employees to go out and ensure that the employer is doing what he's supposed to with the employee, and the employee is doing what he's supposed to the end-use customer, and the end-use customer is doing what he's supposed to do by feeding the ants, and the end result of all that is that they get a whole bunch of money. And you got a middleman there, the guy regulating, and you got another middleman guy there who regulates the regulator. And then you got one other middleman guy who handles 25 regulators who regulate the other regulators. It ends up being 500,000 people. So the guy that ends up getting the short end of the stick in all this is, one, the guy who's feeding the ants, because he's paying out this money for all this food for the ants, some of which goes to the guy who delivers it, some of it goes to the guy who hires it, some of it goes to the tax collector, gets the money from him, and him, and him, and the two regulators, and the other guy on top, and everybody else. And this is all because we're trying to govern ourselves. But you know what? We don't need a government. We don't need any laws. We don't need any policemen. We don't need any regulations. And you might say, well, you know what? That if you do that, you'll have anarchy. Yeah, I guess you would. If you did not have a law, you would have anarchy. However, what if when Adam and Eve were on the earth, and there was this knowledge of good and evil there, and Adam decided, well, I'll just put a fence around that tree so nobody can get to it. Because God said he didn't want nobody touching the tree. So Adam put the fence around the tree. And you know what he did is he took away temptation. Because nobody can get to it. And then they have 2 kids. And their 2 kids are sinless. So now there's 4 of them. And then however they interrelate with each other, if there's a third world or a third heaven or some previous age or just 4 of them, I don't know. They have more kids. And the fence gets old and falls down. Or somebody decides we don't need it anymore, so they take it down. But they're all sinless. Then one guy eats off the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and sins. Now you have one sinner on earth and a whole bunch of non-sinners. So now what? What if that would have happened? I don't know, but it didn't. Because God would say, Adam, I don't want you to put that fence around there. Because that you'll be imposing laws on other people. I'm the king. I'm the lawmaker. And I decide. So take the fence down. That's what God would do. That's what God did. And that's where we are today. Where we are today is that God sets up a set of laws and expects us to follow them. And if we follow his laws, what we won't have is anarchy. And we won't have any poor people. Because there won't be anybody taking money for doing nothing. Think about it. And I still don't know what that thing is up there. Wish I could figure that out.